I was so close to doing a video every day last week. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know I was supposed to have videos out on Friday and Saturday and I didn't get around to getting them done. It's just school became a lot at the end of the week, and the free time I had I really just needed to take to reset for myself, so I'm really sorry about that. But because Canada Reads starts today, I want to get these last two reviews out to you, so they will both be coming your way today. I've got an outfit on that makes me feel like I have my life together. I'm getting some schoolwork done. I just watched the movie was so good, and then at the end it just became shit, and I don't know how I feel about it, so I have to review that for class. So we're going to take some time to talk about some books and then go back and deal with that. The next book that I was slated to talk about is Two Trees Make a Forest, which is by Jessica J. Lee. And I really wanted to like this book because it is defended by Scott Helman, who is a musician that I absolutely love. I have seen him in concert twice, I think now. Big fan. My family and I, we all like pick a book that we think is gonna win, but part of it too is you have to pick a contender that you think is gonna win, and I was like, I would love to pick him, and then I'm like, I don't like this book, and I genuinely can't see it winning. This book made me try and listen to audiobooks again, just because I was having such a hard time reading it, and then give up and go back to reading it again just to try and get it done and over with. So yes, let's dive into that, shall we? Two Trees Makes a Forest is a nonfiction book that explores how geographical forces are interlaced with our family stories. A chance discovery of letters written by her immigrant grandfather leads Jessica J. Lee to her ancestral homeland, Taiwan. There she traces his story while growing closer to the land he knew. Throughout her adventures, Lee uncovers surprising parallels between nature and human stories that shaped her family and their beloved island. In the memoir, she also turns a critical eye onto colonialist explorers who mapped the land and named plants, and both relied on and often erased the labor and knowledge of local communities. This one's going to be a little bit different just because it's a memoir, but to talk what I don't know what you would call it, plot, context, everything that's going on in the book. So there's a lot going on in this story at once. One part of the story is her trying to kind of, I guess, find a sense of belonging is the way that I would describe it, because her family is from China, but because they fled to Taiwan, and then she has grown up in Canada, if I have all my facts straight. She kind of feels like she's torn between all these different places, but doesn't really have a connection to her home identity, which is something that she's trying to explore. She's also trying to deal with the death of her grandfather, who passed away in Taiwan essentially by himself, and he suffered from dementia. And then she's also trying to kind of relearn the history of Taiwan, the history of herself and her family, and piece that all together within the colonial narrative that it's been framed in and everything that has gone through with that. Characters, I feel like I can't say characters because these are real people, but essentially most of the book centers on herself. There's a lot about her relationship with her mother, and then particularly her maternal grandparents. So it specifically focuses on the part of her family that is from China and then spent most of their life in Taiwan. I don't really think I can say much about it because they're people. Like, I feel like I can't judge them as people in any ways. So yeah, I'm just gonna say that that's kind of the people in her family that this story follows and explores, and then I'm just gonna dive right into what I like and what I didn't like. So what I liked about this story, that narrative of belonging was probably the thing that stuck with me the most throughout the story, just as someone who, so my ancestry is, like, my family's been in Canada for generations, but I trace a lot of my ancestry to Scotland, but then through my mom's side of the family, I'm also Ojibwe as well. However, through a history of colonization, unfortunately, a lot of that language and culture hasn't been passed down to me. It's something that, like, I'm trying to find my way back to and I'm trying to reconnect with as much as possible. But that feeling of knowing there's a community that you belong to, but feeling disconnected from it, is something that I could relate to within the story, and I kind of wish that she had taken some time to delve into that more, because that was something that I understood and something that I think is a very unique experience that isn't always actively explored, and the way that, like, missing that connection to your culture, to a homeland, to a people can really affect the way that you think about yourself and your sense of identity. unfortunately, I think that's pretty much all I liked about this book. So to dive into what I didn't like about the book, my biggest issues was the fact that there was so much going on. She was trying to tell an environmental narrative, trying to tell a family history, trying to tell a story about colonization, trying to kind of reconcile her relationship with her grandfather and how he passed away, and there was no like consistent thread pulling it through. We would be following her hiking, and then we would be following what her grandfather did in the war. Then we'd be getting information about the history of Taiwan and everything that happened, and it was so difficult to track what the story was trying to tell me. And that's very much how I left it, being like, I don't understand what the point of this narrative was. I don't mind reading memoirs, and I love memoirs, but I think that there has to be some sort of weight or grounding to them that creates a sense of universality that everyone can relate to, and I got so lost in this narrative, I don't know what she was trying to tell me. And I don't mean, like, this is more of a critique of the way that the memoir is written, obviously not a critique of her life, and I think that's where I feel very weird doing like a non-fiction book review because I don't often do these. Something else that I think was a little bit difficult in the book that probably could have been fixed with having the book be a little bit longer, or maybe having some sort of introduction that gave you more of the history, is because she was writing not knowing to an audience that would probably not know a lot of this history. She was trying to explain a lot of the language and the culture and the context, but then you would lose the thread of the story in this like historical context, and it would get so bogged down in terminology that it was really hard to keep track of what was going on. And I know that there's a lot of weight and power in language and understanding in that history, but unfortunately I don't think the way that it was framed in the novel made it accessible to the reader. Writing, I think I kind of covered that already, but yeah, the way that the story is written, it's not linear very well, and because of that, it's very difficult to follow. I don't think that she's a bad writer. I don't know if some of it comes from the journalistic background, because sometimes I find there's people who write, who are journalists, don't always translate as well to the creative writing because of that kind of like factual way of writing. Sometimes that doesn't always cross over as well. Not saying that journalists aren't good writers, they're very good writers, but because of that, there was definitely a sense of just confusion. Like I didn't follow the story, I didn't track, I had a hard time keeping up with what was going on. How well it transports us. Again, I think I kind of made this same argument with Johnny Appleseed, but because it's a memoir, I don't know if it transports us because it stays in this reality. I think the idea is kind of like, because it's taking us to Taiwan, it's supposed to be transporting us in a version of travel that we can't really do right now because of COVID. So I think in some ways, I see what the book is trying to do there, try to pull us into this other narrative of this other world and look more at like a global perspective of what's going on, and maybe a perspective that we don't always see represented as much. But unfortunately, because of the framing of the story and everything else that got bogged down, it didn't transport me. I like struggled getting through it, and it's like maybe 180 pages, and it was like I was dragging myself to the finish line. So I'm gonna stop there because I always feel bad slandering books because I know how difficult it is to write them. But yes, not my favorite, definitely my least favorite of the 5 books. I will be very shocked if it makes it far in the competition. I just don't know if it quite fits the theme well enough, but I do think that Scott Helman can probably... I'm very interested to see how he defends it and how far he can keep the story going. I haven't watched the episode for today, so I don't know what's been eliminated, but yes, I'm going to film the other video after this, so that will be coming out to you guys today. And again, I apologize about the delay. I love hearing from you guys and the feedback that I've gotten so far. It's so interesting to hear other perspectives on the book or similar perspectives, just to know maybe I'm not crazy when I'm rambling to the camera about things. So as always, feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts on the series, the Canada Reads books, the contenders, maybe today's match if you want to throw it that way. I'm gonna watch it soon, so don't worry about spoilers. Yes, and I will see you in the next video.